Considering home security? Consider this. For 140 years, ADT has helped stop more crime than any other home security company. The yard sign isn't just a sign, it's a line in the sand. It's no wonder 5 times more people choose ADT to protect their homes. Visit ADT.com to learn more. For license information and terms and conditions, visit ADT.com.
Good Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome into another edition of ESPN, Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. Off to a strong start.
There you
today,
go.
I think.
How you want to roll.
Or not. Glad you're with us, Trey Wingo, Mike Golic, and Mike Golic Jr.
Maybe not.
We are presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Lots to get to today. We've got some NBA news. We've got the start of Week 15 of the NFL. So let's start, as we always do, with...
It's time for... Off the Top.
Whether you like it or not,
it's just beginning.
With Golic and Wingo.
And we start off the top in the NBA. Paul George welcomed back, not really, to Indiana. He scored just 12 points on 3 of 14 shooting, but the Thunder won his first game back to Indiana thanks to a strong game from Oklahoma's other players, including George, Russell Westbrook, and Carmelo Anthony combined to score just 34.
Yeah, they were bad. The 3 of them, George, Westbrook, and Carmelo, combined to shoot 10 of 45.
Not good.
They shot 22%. Thank God for Steven Adams, who scored 23 points. I think they had 13 rebounds as well. This is one of those you take the win and you get out of Dodge. But for Paul George, I'm sure he would have loved to play better. He got booed at introduction. He got booed every time he touched the ball, which is not shocking. He said he was going to lead there. He did play well defensively when he was covering one of the guys he was traded for, and Victor Oladipo. Oladipo was just 1 of 7 with 2 turnovers. But for George overall, in the last 4 games, he has more turnovers than made field goals. 20 turnovers and 19 made field goals.
Is that bad?
A bad night for the big 3, but bottom line is they get the win.
Yeah, that's kind of important to note context-wise for what the struggle has been the last few games. That's not like he just went out and peed his pants because he was going back home to his old team. This has been part of a little bit of a slide for him, but an interesting situation. You mentioned putting the cups on Oladipo. That was the guy he was traded for, going back after basically telling them in explicit terms, I'm going to leave if you don't deal with me, so maybe get this done. You can understand a bit of the sour grapes there in Indy.
Oh, no question. And by the way, Oklahoma City plays in Philly tomorrow at 7 Eastern on ESPN. That'll be part of our Sixers All-Access Day on ESPN, where we're sort of enmeshed in Philadelphia with what's going on. We'll have more on that throughout the show today and also tomorrow. We continue.
Off the Top.
Staying in the NBA, the Rockets used a 25-0 run, which will normally help you in a victory. Their largest since November of 1997, per the Elias Sports Bureau, to win their 11th straight game since Chris Paul returned from injury.
They outscored the Hornets by 39 on three-pointers.
Is that good?
By 39. Unreal. So, yeah, he's meant 11 straight since Chris Paul's back. As you mentioned, it's been interesting when each of them have been on the court without the other, how good they've been. The offensive efficiency and defense efficiency have been up for both when they have been on the court without the other. That's pretty amazing. But it's a season now where you wonder, we have pretty much laid it up to Cleveland and Golden State. But should we? Are the Rockets going to be a real thorn in the side of that? And on the other side, are the Celtics going to do that to the Cavaliers? But Rockets are on a heck of a run.
I think to your point about the two operating better with the other off the floor, that's probably the best case scenario if you're Houston, right? Because we saw what happens when your counterpunch is forced to go in and face the depth of Golden State in situations. That was a lot of what undid the Cavaliers, was LeBron James being off the floor and the way that team struggled. If you've got 2 competent guys that can run the point and really lift your team up while the other is off the court, it basically makes you bulletproof.
It is, and to your point, it's going to be fascinating going forward because there did seem to be the last 3 years. Okay, it's going to be the Cavs and the Warriors. We knew this, but now Hayward's off the boot now with the Celtics, and maybe he can come back later in the season. That really surprises me.
It really is.
So you have that, you have the Cavs, and then of course what the Rockets are doing, and the Warriors have not played Warrior type. Now look, not saying they can't, and not saying they won't.
And dealing with some injuries with Curry with his ankles, and you always wonder, just like he did last year when Durant hurt his knee, was that going to last? And it didn't. He went on to be the MVP, in the finals. And with Curry, you do wonder about the ankles because it did affect him a couple of years ago in the finals.
It just seems like there's not this certainty that we've had over the last few years that it's eventually going to be the Cavs and the Warriors, which, as we go through the stretch of the NBA season, is going to make things much more interesting. We continue.
Off the top.
Lonzo Ball is going to face LeBron James for the first time in his professional career this evening when the Lakers visit the Cavs. Although he struggled with his shot, he's averaging more rebounds, assists, and blocks per game than James did during his rookie season.
Yeah, he is. Just a tick on the blocks as far as rebound or assists, about an assist and a half and about 1.5 rebounds per game as well. About 1 assist, 1.5 rebounds. Scoring, we know, has not been the forte of Lonzo at this point, but you have to love the way he's playing. LeBron James had a lot of nice things to say about Lonzo Ball when they were talking, when he was asked about him a couple of days ago. And, everybody's still talking about the fact, is LeBron going to go there next year? Will the Lakers be able to, through some of the work they need to do, open up 2 max spots, one for Paul George, who one of the reasons he got booed with the Pacers, saying he wants to play for the Lakers, and is LeBron going to be that other guy? We'll see down the road. I have my thoughts about that, or I don't think that's really going to be in stone like some people do. But this will be a very interesting matchup between these two guys.
You guys have kind of gotten hip to what LeBron James does with all this praise, right? Like where
Build
it goes. Well, he only does it to the guys he knows aren't a threat right now. Like he's throwing a lot of praise Ben Simmons' way, a lot of praise Lonzo Ball's way, knowing damn well it's not going to happen. Because you remember he used to love up Steph Curry a lot, and then Steph started biting some of LeBron's shine, and all of a sudden that praise got a little quieter along the way. So LeBron James very calculated with where he throws the praise. As far as this matchup, only one of these guys photoshopped themselves onto a Nas cover on a hoodie, so I don't know who the winner of the game's going to be, but the winner of life's already decided.
Well, there you go.
Well, I'm glad you cleared up that very important
one thing you're right about, LeBron is very calculated in everything he says and or posts and or does.
Well, look, it goes back to the fist with Arthur,
Yep.
right? I mean,
that the whole Cavs team turned into like a rallying cry. J.R. Smith and all them throwing it up. I think there's hats now you can buy on J.R.'s website that have a Arthur fist on them. So leave it to them. Make a buck off of something.
One thing you probably can't buy on J.R. Smith's website would be a shirt.
Hopefully not.
He tends to eschew them as much as
yes, he does.
humanly possible for large portions of the offseason. And we finish up.
Off the top.
Well, it's how do we sell this?
Yeah.
Hey, it's Peyton Manning's former teams squaring off tonight when the Broncos visit the Colts. They've come upon hard times, both already eliminated from playoff contention. It's the first time since 1988 through 1994 that the Colts have missed the playoffs 3 straight years.
You know how we build this up? We always do the FBI, the Football Power Index, percentages of this, percentages of that. Here's why this is a tough one.
Okay.
The Colts currently have a 92% chance to have a top 5 pick.
There you go.
And the Broncos currently have a 93% chance at a top 10 pick. There you go.
There you go.
Enjoy the game.
It's all about the draft.
But there is, and I know you talk about it, and I like it as well. I am a fan of the color rush, so I'm always looking forward to seeing what the color rush is going to look like.
Exactly. What are they going to go? Are the Colts one of the teams that do home whites? Because that offers it up. It becomes much more interesting if Denver's the one that gets to go dark colors. You've got the orange in
play.
play.
You gotta love that. And you, I know, as an oval lineman, would hate to be in the all whites. Horrible.
It's disturbing. There's no way to look good in that if you were a larger man with any sort of belly. It's a horrible visual for all involved.
Yep. This is important information you're disseminating.
Well, it is. There's 2 things.
That.
If you're a big fat old lineman and all whites, or B, if you're a football player that pees his pants. I mean, it's just not good.
Or sweats a lot. You become pretty see-through down there. Translucent pants are not what anyone wants with that kind of lower body mass.
Well, look, then this should be nothing new to the Colts if they do go full white, because basically in the snow game they were full white.
Yeah, that is true.
And there was a lot of moisture in the snow game in Buffalo.
Yeah. Fair point. That was like active camo in that game.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said kudos to the Colts for figuring out in a snow game. Let's go all white. Maybe they can't see us. And we'll figure we'll slip some people free.
Unfortunately, they couldn't tackle the guy in red that ran to the touchdown.
That is also true. Shady McCoy apparently looked like
that's a really cocky move, actually, by the Bills. We'll wear bright red and still win.
Hey, man, though, there's one thing to look for in this game, and that's Team Vinatieri, okay? Because Adam Vinatieri, as we talked about, because of that snow game, missed a field goal, so he's under 90% now for the season, and if he hits 90% of his field goals, straight cash, homie. He gets $500,000. So somebody's done the math on
Somebody's
this, right?
done the math. He needs to go 5 of 5. He hits his next 5, he'll be at that 90% mark. So at that point, Do you grab a hammy and say, I'm good for the rest of the year?
Sit him down.
Yeah.
Sit him down. I was proud of you guys. I saw it was a math teacher that said he used it as a problem for his class.
Yep.
So you guys are helping teach the youth of America some math.
It's what we do.
Let's just put it this way. I'm glad they were doing the math and we weren't.
Yeah, we would have got it wrong.
Fair point.
That would have made it much more difficult.
Fair point.
Okay, that is Off the Top. Time now for What's Everybody Talking About, brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day. So we were just talking about the NFL game tonight. There are NFL owners' meetings going on, or did go on in Dallas, and it was the first time, really, that Jerry Jones and Roger Goodell were in the room together after Jerry did everything in his power to possibly torpedo the idea of Roger Goodell's contract extension. It got done. It's signed through, I think, 2023, and there are some clauses in it that are interesting that we'll get into. But the bigger issue was, what was the dynamic like between Roger and Jerry Jones when they finally got together after butting heads? And here's what Roger Goodell had to say.
My relationship with Jerry has been great. We don't always agree, and I'm not paid to agree, and he's not paid to agree with me. I think that's, again, what the strength of our league is. And so as a league, we're stronger when 32 teams are together. We have our differences, but we work together to try to solve those differences and address them in a way that we think is going to be responsible. And I think we've done that.
All right, so he thinks they've done that. Does Jerry think they've done that?
Well, I mean, listen, it's not like Roger or Jerry are either each going to get up there and say, we have no relationship anymore, we hate each other's guts. That's not going to happen. They're going to have a working relationship. Nobody says they have to be friends and break bread over this thing. There are those that think that Roger Goodell won this because he got a $200 million deal, and he already made $200 million. So from 2006 to 2024, 23, when this ends, he'll have made $400 million, which is good work if you can get it. More power to him. That's what I said. Everybody make what you can make, man. I have no issue with that at all. And on the other side, there are those that say Jerry Jones won while he didn't stop or delay the signing, that this is a heavily incentive-filled contract, so he's going to have to earn that money in different ways, different marker points. So both sides may be claiming victory in this one.
Yeah, and Ian Fitzsimmons, who co-hosts with Freddie Coleman on Freddie and Fitz, called in First and Last this morning and mentioned that Jerry Jones believes that he has won. Now, this may be Jerry trying to spin this in the way that makes Jerry feel good about things, but it's interesting now what happens going forward, because like you said, they're going to have a working relationship. But we've clearly seen Jerry would like for the commissioner to have less power going forward. And so what does he do to try and accomplish on that end? And because that's something players have always wanted and really cried against in this CBA, does having Jerry Jones now starting to echo that maybe sway some owners to where that's a more realistic conversation when the next CBA comes
up?
Well,
the only thing I would say is then who gets the power? I mean, unless they're giving it to somebody independent or the owners are still going to hold on to it, but just give it to somebody else with authority of ownership, then that doesn't help the players a lot, much at all. And from Roger's side of it, if the power does go somewhere else and it's taken from him, I would imagine to a point you'd almost be relieved. Now, when you have the power, you don't want to be the one standing up there saying, I'm giving up the power. Right? You want to have that power. So if the other owners who, oh, by the way, pay his salary, decide somebody else should have the power, then he could be like, hey, I wanted the power. I had the power. My boss has decided it should go somewhere else. So be it. There's part of me, if that were to happen, would think he would be relieved a little bit, quite honestly.
Well, you'd think that, but that's something that he's tried to cling on to like grim death, the idea that he's supervising all of this stuff. Because I agree with you. It's a headache, and there's really no win for him in this. The best part would be if he could just say, hey, you know what? In the best interest of the game, so there's no showing sides and there's no partisanship, I'm going to let an independent, but that's not what he wants.
Right.
And the other thing is, as much as we all believe on some level that part of this is driven by the Ezekiel Elliott suspension, even though Jerry says it's not. He said over the summer, hey, Roger's done an A+ job for us. So only one thing has changed. I believe there were legitimate issues that Jerry raised here, whether or not they came from a genuine place. But, I mean, the NFL, the ratings are down, even though, yes, we get it. They're down across the board in television. I understand that. But there's been a lot of controversy that some people have said it's bad for the business. And let's be clear, he had 18 months left on his deal.
He did have time.
So Jerry's point, I think, was valid. Why are we rushing into this to give this guy a bajillion-dollar raise when these things are real issues that are affecting our business. I think whether he got there or not from a personal or unobjective standpoint is almost irrelevant. I think the points he made were legitimate. Don't you guys?
I do, and you know what this sounds eerily similar to, just because this came up the other day, and this is a discussion I had with your wife, my mother, sounds eerily like everything that's evolved around LeVar Ball. You can question the motives that have brought us to this point, but there are interesting conversations that come off of it. And now, with the commissioner and with Jerry Jones, you wonder where these conversations again go going forward. Can the commissioner evolve in ways that we saw him evolve when it came to the anthem issue, when he went to the owners in that meeting with them and the players and said, hey, listen, we need to be more receptive to these guys because they've got power and a leverage in a way that we didn't have or see them have before. Can the commissioner now evolve in the way that he sees crime and punishment in a league that he came in very strong on?
And by the way, it's been reported that this might be Rodgers' last deal as a commissioner, although Rodgers said, I've made no certainties about my future. But it's an interesting situation. We'll put it up on Golic and Wingo. What would you want out of the next NFL commissioner? Not who would you want, but what would you want him to be?
What would you want? Not like you're going to get a say, but
you won't. Let's be clear. The owners will decide. But if you had a choice, what would you like to see out of your new commissioner in the NFL when that comes a few years from now? Hit us up at Golic and Wingo. We'll have those tweets for you later on in the show. Coming up, if you knew that playing the game you love might affect you long-term after you stop playing it, and you knew you had this certain thing, would you still do it, and would you want to know? It's an interesting question that was posed to a lot of NFL players. We'll get into that.
Hey everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS-ConsumerAccess.org number 3030.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I'm so happy, I feel like I can fly.
Disclaimer, you will not be able to fly by switching to Geico. This is against the laws of physics and nature. If you find yourself flying, please seek professional and or medical help immediately. In the unlikely event you find yourself flying, you might be a superhero, or a pigeon, or a superhero named Pidgewoman, who was bitten by a radioactive pigeon. If you are indeed Pidgewoman, Geico retains all licensing publishing rights in the event Pidgewoman the movie becomes a top-grossing Hollywood blockbuster.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Trey Wingo, Mike Golic Jr. Lots to get to. We've had some interesting things on Social Play thanks to Junior's karaoke night out with thousands of people that he works with and sees very rarely. That'll be up a little bit later on. We'll have some tweets for that. What do you want out of your new commissioner? We'll have some of those as well.
A lot of you have talked about the mugs that are on our set here, and we're going to start giving some of those away as well. Some nice mugs that you can, might as well give as a Christmas present, right? Save you some money from buying anything.
Where's mine?
Yeah, or people like, really? That's what you gave me?
Pretty much.
Really?
Yeah.
I got a
That's
mug.
it?
I got a mug.
I got a mug with those two mopes' name on it. Thanks. Boy, you think the world of me.
Yeah.
Great stocking stuffers.
Thanks. Actually fill the entire stocking. Oh, my gosh. All right, by the way, we're getting some interesting tweets in. We're getting some interesting tweets in there on what we should sing. Someone says that you and I should sing, Mike, I Got You, Babe, from Sunday.
Oh, there you go. I like that.
Yeah.
You know what I want people in the again up there? Which ESPN personality and what would you choose for them to sing in karaoke? I'm trying to think of what you would make Tony Kornheiser sing. That's where I'm going.
Wow.
What would
Party
TK
in the USA?
Dancing in the Streets.
How great would that be?
For example, we put up on Twitter Stephen A. Smith singing Scream and Shout, which, makes all the sense.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Will Kane singing Fireman.
Yeah.
I don't see Stephen A.
There's
though.
a pregnant pause of silence.
Yeah,
there, just so you know.
strong response from everyone in the studio here.
thanks for
We're
that.
workshopping that one.
I have a
behind
tough
the
time
scenes.
thinking Stephen A. is going to do well in the little bit softer
However,
now part. Yeah,
he might.
A little
You
bit
just never
softer
know.
now. He won't be able to
Yeah.
get down with the softer part.
Yeah, that's also true. Okay, so we talked about this before, and it's a really interesting article that came out on SportsIllustrated.com. Right now, you can only diagnose CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, after someone has died. But the Boston University CTE Center believes that in as little as 5 years, there might be a test that you could take to determine whether or not you have it while while you're alive, number one.
Right.
And while you're an active player in a contact sport like football, hockey, soccer, whatever, where you have a lot of, lacrosse, anything that involves collisions and using your head a lot, or collisions at the head. And they actually talked to a bunch of current NFL players about that situation. If, for example, one of the questions they asked was, if there was a test to diagnose CTE, would you take it? Among those they asked was Kirk Cousins, the quarterback. He said, yeah, sure. I think there are other guys who would play regardless. It's not going to change the way I approach the game, so why should it be hanging over my head? They asked Tahir Whitehead, the Lions linebacker. For sure, I think it would be a good idea. Chris Long, who is a really insightful guy, said, I would take it, but I would also be very careful not to predictable behavior to my results, to add predictable behavior to my results. I don't believe it's a slam dunk that if you have CTE, you're going to, and we have in quotes here, lose it. He went on to say, we're probably going to be the last generation that will have no idea what's going on with our brains. I think the next generation is really going to know a lot. So let me ask you two guys. Mike, you played, 9 years in the NFL?
Yep.
Junior, you played in college and, of course, went to training camps in the NFL. If there was a test right now that could tell you whether or not you had CTE, would you take it?
Yeah, in a heartbeat.
What would be your reason for taking it?
Because I always think knowing more helps. I think understanding your situation allows you to help control it a little bit better, or at least address the realities of it. And within the larger context of this conversation, this would be the next step in proving a lot more of what Chris Long is talking about here. Is there, is correlation causation in a lot of these cases? Is the understanding that CTE has a link to head trauma and some of the things that we've seen, but is it the driving force? All of that gets answered once you can start to diagnose in the living.
There is that part of the research which would, from that standpoint, I would almost feel like there's an obligation to do it. Now we're just talking about professional athletes. Certainly, if there's a test you can do for the living, and you could do it for younger, from high school on, did you see what are the percentages? If you could start finding that out. All great for research, but we're talking about the NFL players now, and players who have played a long time like we have.
Would you want to know?
My first thought was this. My first thought was, no, not until I knew there was a cure. Why would I want to know I have something if I can't do anything about it? That was my initial thought.
Uh-huh.
My initial thought was, well, is there a cure, or are you just telling me I have it? When we get,
I think the premise of the survey was just to know whether or not you were going to have it or not.
There was part of me, my initial thought was no. If I can't do anything about it, listen, we get tested for all sorts of bad diseases now, and one of the reasons you get early detection is you can start treatments for them. Right now, there's no treatment for CTE. So my first thought was, why would I want to know? Because there's nothing I can do about it. Then I start thinking and going, okay, are there different stages of CTE? So if I test that out, and while I'm playing and I find out, yes, I have it, but stage 1, I don't know, is there 4 stages? Stage 1 of it, do I then go, okay, I am at stage 1, do I stop playing? Do I make the decision now to say, okay, I have that, I don't have stage 4, or 3, if I'm at stage 1, I can still make the choice maybe to stop playing, and maybe it won't go any further. So I start to add questions like that into the equation, but I'll be honest, my initial thought was, if you can't cure it, why the hell do I want to know?
And I think my response to that would be, again, kind of what my point in the beginning of this was, and what Chris Long's is when you say if there's not a cure, that indicates that the presence of it means there's something wrong. And that's what we don't always know yet. Is it just by it being there, does that mean you're subject to the dementia, the links to ALS, all these other things that supposedly come from this? And that's the thing that we don't know. So by you saying, well, I would only want to know if there's a cure, requires that there's something to be cured necessarily.
So, as I said, that was my first thought. In thinking more about it, I would think I would have to do it. I do think there is, obligation is the wrong word. You're not obligated to do anything. But the one thing that has to come along with it, if a player does it, because we want to find out, the causation, is you have to be truthful about your history. Have you done drugs? Have you done steroids? How many opioids have you taken in your career? You have to be, because we need to collect everything, correct? Would you agree with that? You need to be, you can't just say, yes, he has it, no, he doesn't have it, without having a history of what you have been doing up to that point, or even past that point, other than repetitive hits to the head. Because that's the one part of it that I still, as we're getting more and more research, to just say this causes it no matter what, nothing else is involved. When we don't know that yet, it can certainly be part of it, but you need to be honest with the rest of your history as far as what you've taken and what you've done.
Well, listen, Artie Burns was one of the players that they talked to, the Steelers cornerback, and I thought his answer was interesting. He's in his second year in the NFL, okay? He said, I definitely know I have it. I'm going to test positive for that test. Is it going to tell me how much I have, to your question about it? We play a physical game, man. Humans aren't made to run into each other like that. You know, I thought. Well, I don't know. I don't know what his situation or background is that would make him think he knows he has it. But look, it's hard to get away from the idea that eventually, I think this is going to be a situation that a lot of Nick Buoniconti, for example, went on for years and years and years and had no issues whatsoever, and now only in the last few years has he really had some issues that have really changed his perspective on his playing days and what it meant to him. And he's a guy that's been through a lot. He saw his son paralyzed from the neck down in a game at the Citadel, and suddenly for years he was like, well, it might not be that bad, and now he's realizing in a much later stage in his life that, man, this is maybe much worse than I thought it could possibly be.
The only thing I'll say to maybe put a bow on all of this is what strikes it as different for me is something that I immediately thought of when this came up, and this was the idea. It was Jake Dowell, who was an NHL player for a while with the Blackhawks, who for a long time put off getting tested for Huntington's disease, something that had ravaged his family. It was a devastating story.
It's an awful
His father had died from it. He had a brother who suffered from it, and he had put off for a long time. He had about 50-50 shot of knowing that, all right, if I have this, I know exactly what this is going to do to the trajectory of my life. We know the effects that has. So if he had gotten that, and the test, he got a clean bill of health, so thankfully for him, that was not a part of his life. But there was certainty in knowing. There is no certainty in knowing if you were to test in the living for CTE, what that would mean. That would be the beginning of understanding. That would be the beginning of saying, all right, if we test and we see that there are a lot of folks like you and I who are up here, who are of sound mind and body, who have this present, all right, how can that still be a part of the conversation? How does that change the way we look at this?
I agree, because that's why I said my initial thought was, if there's not a cure, I don't want to know, but I've evolved to that as my initial thought to, I would get it done, because it could just mean too much to research. And really, a quick thought on Artie Burns, and he is absolutely entitled to his opinion. That scares me, because there have been more than a few people who were absolutely positively sure they had it, and the first sign of, oh my God, I forgot my keys or I forgot this, oh, it's manifesting itself. And these were younger people, and they killed themselves. And after they killed themselves, their brain was looked at, and they did not have CTE. So that's the part where, Artie, I say, man, be careful of that, saying, I know I have it. So anything, and that goes into what Chris Long said of, but be careful of any little thing that may happen. You say, well, that's CTE, and now I'm going to die because of that. Because we've seen, as I said, on the other end, younger people that have killed themselves and never had it. So I hope they get this way sooner rather than later, and I do agree. Yes, you should be get tested for this, because it can only help in the research.
Look, this is a discussion we'll continue to have on this show, and obviously one that we'll continue to have going forward in the sport. The bottom line, the only certainty you would get from the test is knowing that you have it one way or the other, and that's what it is right now. All right, we roll on through the first hour. Golic and Wingo, Trey Wingo, Mike Golic Jr. here with you. Aaron Rodgers, look, he could be cleared. He's cleared, but he could be activated as early as Friday. That's the deal. After missing 7 weeks with the broken collarbone, he put out there on Instagram that he's back and ready to roll. He's, I'm healthy. I'm ready to look forward to this. Mike McCarthy was talking about it as well. They've sort of found a way to sort of stay in it. They're 7-6 right now, heading into a huge game this weekend in Carolina against the Panthers, and a very, very good defense. Aaron Rodgers talked to the folks in Green Bay, and let's just say some of us here think he was a little less than truthful.
I'm just going to bring you the energy and enthusiasm that I always do to practice. Obviously, I think there's an expectation of the way I play on Sunday and how I'm going to play. I enjoy those expectations. I enjoy meeting those or exceeding those. That's what it means to be a leader in this locker room and the quarterback of this team is going out and performing and doing your job. Hopefully it gives a lift to some of the guys, but I'm not coming back to save this team. I'm coming back to play quarterback the way I know how to play it, and hopefully we all raise the level of our play collectively and find a way to win these 3 games.
Let's stop that now.
I completely agree with him. He's coming back to play quarterback the way he plays quarterback, which can save this team.
There it is.
I mean, come on. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, man. We always say the Packers are in it because they have Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. That is exactly, he is coming back. So he may not want to think that, but everybody, including all the people sitting in that room with him, are thinking that.
Being on a football team is about knowing your role, whether it's being a special teamer, whether it's being a backup swing offensive lineman and finding a way to influence the game when you get a chance. Bringing effort and energy is the job of guys like that. Mm-hmm. Aaron Rodgers, your role is to go out there and win them these damn football games because Lord knows the Packers haven't put a competent enough roster around you for the most part in the rest of it to really give you tons of help in this outside of Jordy Nelson and Devontae Adams.
And while we appreciate the way he goes about his business,
he's
saying, hey, I'm just here to play my role, and he doesn't want to diminish what anyone else is doing, let's just not kid ourselves, okay? He's coming. If he's just there to not save the team, then let's just roll Brett Hundley out there. I mean,
exactly.
Look, you give the Packers the best chance to win, and kudos to Brett Hundley for coming back from 14 down in the fourth quarter, sending that game to overtime in Cleveland and getting the W. But Aaron Rodgers is there because they believe he gives the Packers the best chance to win these last 3 games and put them in a position to get into the playoffs. That's why he's playing. That's the only reason he's playing, right? Because he can do things that other players can't. And the second level plays, the second reaction plays, where you make chicken salad out of you-know-what, that's what he does better maybe than anyone in the NFL.
Yeah.
That's why he's out there.
Yeah, and I get it. He's just not going to say it. He's not going to stand up there and say,
nor should he, but let's just be honest.
But it'd be kind of cool if he did.
Yeah, wouldn't it be so? Hey, guys, here, wait a minute. Hold on before I start this interview. Let me get my cape.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and strap on the feed bag prematurely on this one. It's going to be a long weekend.
I tell you, a guy who's going to love having him back now is a guy who got a little more involved in the last 2 weeks with 2 wins was Jordy Nelson.
Football and farmer, baby.
2 weeks ago, he had 5 catches. Last week, 4. Before that, 3, 2, 3. A couple weeks before that, 1. So he's a guy that, he and Aaron Rodgers have that special kind of quarterback receiver bond. So I think you'll see him getting back into the flow along with others because Aaron can spread it around. But, yeah, let's make no mistake here. He is out there. He's out there to get this team a shot at the playoffs. And as I said, if he doesn't win this week, they're going to be done. He's going to want to keep playing. Then the decision will be very interesting. Do you keep him out there or just kind of bag the rest of the season and make sure he doesn't get hurt anymore? I have a feeling once he's back out on the field, he's going to be back out on the field for good.
Totally agree. So that was Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. And we had Thomas Davis, actually, the outstanding linebacker for the Panthers on NFL Live yesterday. And he said, we're going to find out quickly how healthy that collarbone is.
Yeah.
You know how that goes. You test it. Coming up, we had Charles Barkley on the show yesterday, and he had some very choice words for a man who's been in the news a lot. We'll have that for you when we come back. Stay with us.